Go eat raw spaghetti. But who does that? Who goes to a Minecraft video? Kids playing Minecraft.
Wow.
Well, what do you think of the laws of logic? How you justify the laws of logic? How do you know that?
Whatever.
It seems indicative of an empty person, to be honest. I mean, like,
well, I do believe he trolls. Oh yeah, he's one of the greatest trolls of all time. But does he actually believe this? I do. I'm convinced that he absolutely does. His son disowned him. I mean, his son said he's a prick. He's a troll.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Well, he's a troll. I mean, that's a fact.
Oh yeah, that's a fact. I don't believe he really believes in God or whatever. Because when people here's the thing that pushed me to that. When people ask him, well, how about let me ask you some questions about your faith? He stumbles and falters like
because he doesn't know how to justify his own faith. He has no idea. Yeah,
but he doesn't even try.
He's focused so much on the offensive then that he neglects the defensive?
Yeah, the whole strategy for presuppers is always keep the other person answering the questions. Because if you're answering questions, you can't really ask them, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So that's the whole narrative that the presuppers, especially Darwin's.
It's a game to him. It's all of it's I want to show how I sound like I know exactly what I'm talking about, and
he doesn't.
I know he's full of shit.
And there's actually a list. I don't know whatever happened to it, but there was actually a list of 28 questions that he will not answer, that he refuses to answer. And the reason being is because he's been doing this so long, from the Pal Talk days way back when, that they've compiled these list of questions that if he were to answer any of them, it would basically be a contradiction from something else that he said. And he knows it. And this is why what happens is if you ask him any of those questions, he'll say, oh, you're on my troll list. You got that question from these, and therefore I'm not going to answer it, and you're done.
Fuck you, dude.
That's how he plays the game. I watched him one time talking to Ozzy and Malpass and a few other people, and one of the questions was asked by, I think it was a realistic nihilist, a legitimate question that would have been a follow-up question from the line of questioning, right? Usually when you have some kind of interrogatory, the next question is going to be a natural progression that has to be asked, right? We've had these discussions. Mm-hmm. But one of the guys that was on his troll list had asked the question. And he's like, well, I don't answer the question of people on my troll list. And Ozzy said, well, I was about to ask that exact same question. So can you answer it for me? And he said, and Darwin's like, well, no, because you got that question from him, and I don't answer the questions from troll. And Ozzy's like, wait, are you for real? Ozzy doesn't curse much on camera, but this is not the most time I really wanted to say, are you fucking for real?
It seems like a very weaselly way to you have certain questions that are it's very actually religious. I mean, you have certain questions that can't be asked.
That's a good way to put it, weasel.
Yeah.
Weasel.
Jordan, have you seen any Psi 10? Psi 10 Bruggencate?
Maybe, but to be honest, nothing's coming to mind.
You don't know who he is? He did a debate with Matt Dillahunty, another excellent debate.
Could you be wrong? That's his thing. Could you be wrong about that?
Yeah, okay. Jordan, his game ultimately comes down to he questions how you can know anything, and pretty much he questions the pretty much the fundamentals we have to take. We have to assume, right? For example, that we can learn things, that we can trust our senses. Ultimately, he questions you on those things, breaks it down to a point where you say, well, ultimately, I do have to trust that, my senses are valid, that I can, glean information about the world. And then he says, and then you kind of turn it back on him and say, well, don't ultimately you have to do that too? He's like, not unless there is someone that knows everything that gives you that information. It's like, don't you see what's wrong with that? Like,
that's exactly what he does.
Don't you know that? I mean, couldn't you be deceived? Like, you don't know everything. Like, how do you know that?
God tells him in a way that he can't be wrong. And it's exactly what it is. There's Hume's problem of induction is something that goes along the lines of you can't use induction to justify induction. So how do you how as the quote non-believer do you justify the use of induction? The answer is you can't, and that is true. He is right on that. Mm-hmm. But he's in the same boat. But what he does is says, oh well, you can't justify induction, which is true. But he says, well, I have somebody that tells me the uniform of nature will never change. Therefore, I can justify the use of induction because he's telling me, the all-knowing one, that the laws of the universe won't change, the laws of logic won't change, and therefore I can know that the uniform of nature is true. Therefore, I don't have a problem with Hume's induction. which is obviously crap, right?
Of course. I mean, it always happens to be the god of their cultural upbringing, too. I mean, notice that.
I mean, if that was so simple to solve Hume's problem of induction, then why isn't he writing a paper on it and putting it out and going, oh, look, I've solved Hume's induction. I can actually justify it. God. Yeah, that's not going to fly well in the philosophical circles.
No, so I know, Steve and Kyle, have a soft spot for this guy because I know him in person, but if you listen to this guy, he's infuriating. He's
he is. We agree there. If you want to see the best debate with Side 10, where he really gets. I think this is the debate where he lost the most. Watch him and Alex Botten. Alex Botten really, really, really takes it to him in that, and I think shows the ridiculousness of the precept argument. So that's
Precept's pretty much dead. I mean, one of the Precept when it first came around was big. Whenever we were in a hangout, Preceptor had to come in. So a group of us got together: Floyd FP, myself, Foul Talkers, Jack Angstrike, a whole bunch of people, and we're like, this. We were going to. I learned the arguments and then show people how to dismantle presuppositionalism. And how many preceptors do you see around any longer? Oh wait.
But correlation isn't causation, Steve.
Correlation isn't causation. That's true. But but I can tell you there was an influence there because people have listened to our discussions with preceptors and go, "Holy crap!" They got annihilated because once you know their script, it's not hard. It's really the problem with precept is when it first came around, people didn't know these things, right? And they were getting their ass handed to them because they didn't know how to respond. But now it's just a game.
Steve, here's the problem though. Like, if the suppositionalist arguments are destroyed daily now. But my main issue is they found a new audience. They do these street interviews where they ask random people who haven't thought deeply on these topics.
Yep.
And they kind of
precept street epistemology.
Exactly. They beat them down with these poorly constructed arguments. And their own audience is very impressed with it. They're like, "Wow, they sound pretty good to me." It's like, and that's what kills me. That's what really ends up.
No, you're right. No, and by the way, I've seen one or two of those. But if you have a link of a channel that actually does a lot of those, please send it to me.
You're on that channel, actually. Well,
your preceptors that go out. No, the ones that actually go out and do that. The preceptors that do.
No, I used to do street epistemology. Actually,
not street epistemology. No. Precept street epistemology. No, I mean I know Anthony Magnapasco. In fact, I had some concerns with street epistemology very early on, and I go back and forth on it. And I wrote to him a very long thing of my analysis on street epistemology, and he was very receptive of it. And I think they implemented a few things. And I like what they do. I really do. I just think that there was some issues I saw epistemically, and Ozzy saw, and a few other people saw. But Anthony has a great heart. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys you ever want to talk to.
He's a sweetheart. Yeah,
oh my God, that guy! I want to see him pissed off once.
I don't think it can happen. I don't think his brain is wired that way.
I think you're right.
I literally don't think he has the capacity.
He's just even keel. So I admire that. I don't know how he does it.
I don't have it.
I think he's got a good thing going. What he did was he took Peter Boghossian's model and he got rid of some of the shit stuff with Peter Boghossian's model. I'm not a fan of Peter Boghossian.
Whatever worked for you, I think. There's a place for all of that. I think ultimately, it just depends on who it is you're interacting with and what they will.
I binge watch that stuff. I binge watched his videos. I couldn't get enough of epistemology. I was like, this is fascinating.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I go back and forth on it. The episode right before you guys, the episode before the one before you guys is I talked with a current street epistemologist. Well, I guess quasi. But he was a guy who was deconverted by an Anthony Magnapasco video. And it was about a year and a half ago, something like that. He was a Christian who was actually like deconverted in real time in one of his videos, and then started a channel of his own. And I don't know what's that?
Is it good for him?
Yeah, it was a really cool thing to hear about. I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't disagree with it at all, but maybe it's just not something that I personally am interested in. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you something. I won't go into the real technical stuff what my critique was, but the big picture, which is very, very basic, is that I find that the people doing these street epistemology aren't familiar with epistemology, and they run the problem of basically doing the same thing a preceptor would doing is basically asking bad argument questions, and basically if a person is going to change their position because you're giving them a bad argument, are you really effectively changing their position, or is it some temporary thing? And then they go, oh, later, oh yeah, and I thought about that. That was really a bad argument, and they change their position back, right? Which is a concern. But Anthony knows how to ask the right questions. I watched a video one day of his, and he asked a question that I too am thinking all the time, and yet nobody brings it up, right? But and I worded it a little bit differently. But he asked a question to people that believed in rocks having energies, right? And rocks are doing amethyst, right? And I used to work. I used to help out at a metaphysical bookstore years and years ago.
Oh man!
So I was into the crystal stuff a little bit, right? A little bit. Years ago. This is going back time. I had a pass, people. I had a pass. Leave me alone.
Oh my God!
Kyle doesn't know about this stuff, so this is like we don't
expose that.
But the question,
Steve, no.
Day forward, things have changed. I used to wear a little crystal, but anyways, so the person, Anthony, you're a young Earth creationist.
Rocks can heal me.
Yeah, that's a fair rebuttal.
Don't you judge me?
Yeah,
no, I didn't really believe it that much. It wasn't like that. But long story short, he asked a question. He said, "What gives these powers to rocks to make them do what you think they're going to do? For example, hematite for blood. What makes it such that case that it has that empowerment, right? And they couldn't answer that question because there is no answer to that question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God!
Now, there's no objective things by which this rock must do this effect.
This makes sense though, because I asked Steve a question last week because Steve was having an argument with somebody over whether or not
objectively Dan, by the way, he was thinking of. I'm sorry.
Rocks were atheists. He was having an argument with somebody about whether rocks were atheists. And I'm sitting here going, "What? Who gives a fuck? What if
you can't personify rocks like that?"
And now it makes sense though. Now I understand that you were genuinely concerned with those rock souls back when.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I have.
Steve, tell no one else that story, okay? From
I have a logical proof that if you do this, then rocks are atheists. There's atheists out there that actually argue rocks are atheist. I argue against that. I think to say that a rock is atheist is one of the silliest things I've ever heard.
So
I call them rock atheists. But I understand. She's been for years. She has an argument. Rocks are atheists. Chairs are atheists. Plants are atheists.
Rocks are rocks. Rocks are rocks.
Yeah,
you truncate that. I tried to convince her of that. She won't listen.
Who is she?
Dr. Jones tried to convince her of that 4 years ago. She didn't listen.
Who is she?
Kate. Planet Dance.
Oh.
She's a firm believer that rocks are atheists.
Kate, rocks are not atheists. Rocks are rocks.
I get that, and everybody who knows this topic gets that. But she's adamant about it. I don't understand.
I don't get that.
Won't let that go. To me, that's a bad atheist argument. That makes me, as a non-believer, look bad.
Yeah.
When somebody's are saying, "Hey, rocks are atheists," well, what?
It doesn't make. I don't like. I am me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't let other people speak for me, or because the thing is, atheism is not it's not like a religion. You know what I'm saying? Like when somebody in the church does something bad, it may look bad on the church because you're all members of that congregation together. You're all follow those same things. With atheism, it's only one thing that we all have in common. You know what I'm saying? Like, when they do something, it doesn't look bad on me because the only thing that I have in common with that person is our,
I get that, but as a whole, right? But still, I mean, this is one community, and you're all right. I mean, one thing that all atheists, they don't believe in God. That is ubiquitous between any way you want to call it.
Everything else is different. Everything else,
there's differences, and obviously, I have a different terminology. I go by philosophical terminology. I don't know if they know, but yes, I don't even identify as an atheist. I am an agnostic.
Oh, I'm sure they know. The world knows.
Oh, I don't think they do. But still, we're non-believers, right? That's the key part. Non-believers. So when somebody's making very bad arguments to a theist, I just sit there and cringe because I'm like, holy crap! Do you understand how bad this argument? And this theist is just, what are they thinking? They're like, this guy is just, wow. They don't know what the hell they're talking about when they're making this kind of bad argument to me.
No, it's just like if they want to know what I think, they can come ask me. But
that's right. Then that's how I do it too, right?
That rocks are anything other than rocks.
Yeah.
I don't think that they are vegan. I don't think that they are
vegan rock.
They are homosexual.
Kyle, are we ever going to do that? Because I got to tell you, there's some vegans on Twitter that are just the most obnoxious, I guess, in your face. Are you doing something with that? I mean, I don't mind if we do. I'm not vegan.